So you've got some of these and maybe one of these. But is there anything that goes in the middle? The convenience of that, but the accuracy of that. But without all the mess and cleanup and variables that come with this thing. Let's have a look. Welcome back to the State of Play. By now, you guys have hopefully noticed that on this channel I try to provide simple solutions to common problems that have just been nagging at you. Annoying little things we put up with. In this case, looking out of the window, seeing rain and realising we can't prime with a rattle can today. So today, we're going to talk about this. An ingenious little tool that sits somewhere between a spray can and an expensive airbrush. A spray can says to spray between 15 and 25 degrees Celsius with low humidity. And we're getting less and less time that fits that criteria. It used to be that spraying outside was easy, and if you couldn't, you'd spray inside with an airbrush if you had one. I tried using rattle cans in the house and got chewed out so badly for the smell and the fine layer of coloured dust everywhere that it just wasn't worth it. So I bought an airbrush and a spray booth. Great, now I can spray whenever. But no one really tells you how much setup, cleanup, space, ventilation, variables, issues, clogs, paint types, thinners, flow improvers and irritations you need to deal with. And if you can't have an airbrush set up 24/7 in your hobby space, like me, then what's your options? So I started looking for something that would bridge the gap between the two. A thing that would allow me to swap colours as quick as spray cans, but a thing that would clean up and set up much quicker than an airbrush. Something more accurate and controllable than a spray can, but perhaps not as precise as an airbrush. Surely someone had invented something like that and it wouldn't cost a fortune. Turns out there was, and nobody was buying it. It's called the Sparmax Flyer. Now I've got no affiliation with Sparmax and bought this with my own money, so you'll get a completely honest view of this. It's basically a single action trigger airbrush with an external air mix in a 4mm nozzle made out of kinda cheap plastic. That means you pull the trigger and it sprays. There's no pressure control like on an airbrush, it's much more like a spray can. And because the air mixes with the paint outside the device and not inside, it's a bit more splattery and less precise than an airbrush. But it's way better than a spray can. And so much easier to clean and set up than an airbrush. It sits somewhere between the two, but closer to the airbrush side than the rattle can side. It does have this weird quirk where the bottle points slightly down and the spray part points slightly up, but once you get used to that, it's much easier to direct than a rattle can. It's never going to replace either of the two other options because picking up and shaking a rattle can is always going to be fast, and a dual action airbrush with swappable needles and nozzles is always going to be more accurate and buttery smooth. But what you can do is swap colours, quicker than it takes to shake up a rattle can and way faster than flushing, cleaning and replacing colours in an airbrush. The basic premise is you put your colours in these little bottles. The top of the bottle is the nozzle and you push it into here. This keeps the hexagonal nut fixed in place, so when you turn the bottle, it releases the paint. More turn, more paint. Then you pull the trigger and spray. So there's some control, but not a huge amount. Way more control than a spray can, not as much as an airbrush. The best part is when I'm done with this colour, I just tighten the old bottle back up, pull it out and put in a new one with a different colour, and start spraying. Swap as many colours as you have bottles and nozzles. The cleaning's also super simple. Take off the nozzle top, unscrew and clean it with airbrush cleaner. You can empty the bottle and clean that, or just put this top on and keep it sealed for later. My only real bugbear was these bottles. The Flyer only comes with one bottle and nozzle, so you immediately need to go and buy more to have enough nozzles to hot swap. They come in glass and plastic, depending on whether you spray with water-based paint like acrylic or solvent-based paint like enamels. But that's not the issue. The issue is size. These bottles are 15mm, and I don't always want to have to make up 15mm of paint. But they're just bottles, right? With a certain size screw thread on top and a specific diameter to fit in the trigger. So you can just go and buy smaller bottles. Well, yes and no. Sparmax don't do smaller bottles. But you can buy smaller bottles. Amazon have loads. However, finding the right bottle with the right size and screw thread is a pain. I ended up buying 3 different types before I found one that worked. I returned one set and ended up keeping the third to put pigments in. If I had to do it again, I'd actually go to a physical shop that sells small perfume bottles and try them out with the nozzle first. Basically what you're looking for are bottles with a 22mm diameter and a 17.6mm screw thread. But not a lot of the bottles on Amazon give you the screw thread measurements. So you might have to email the seller and ask, or keep buying and returning them until you hit the right ones. I got these ones in the UK after a lot of trial and error. Mostly error. These 7mm bottles saved me from having to make up too much paint every time. The one other thing that I discovered which kind of really made my day, and yes, I'm super excited by nerdy hobby stuff, was this. You might recognise these, made all the more famous by Marco Frassoni at Not Just Mecca. Molotov One for all acrylic marker refills. Well, it turns out that the bottle and screw thread on these fit perfectly with the Sparmax Flyer. So you can literally just take out the dropper part, screw on the nozzle part. You can hot swap between all the Molotov paints with enough nozzles, and spray. For priming, it's amazing. And when these are eventually empty, you've got a whole load of new bottles that will work. Ah, but these have mixing bowls inside, you see. Yes, they do, and that can block the flow of the paint, but the ball isn't small enough to get stuck in here. In short, this thing's never going to revolutionise model spraying. But it's a lot more versatile than I thought it would be when I bought it. And I only really got it to quickly prime and zenithal by swapping between black, grey and white when it was raining outside. Now I zenithal with a huge range of different colours, but I can't really say it's good for any kind of close-up, precise spraying of small areas. This thing's never going to make you Angel Heralde. You can hot swap between colours, get your own smaller bottles and use Molotov paint refills. It cleans super quickly with interdental brushes and you can leave unused paint stored in little sealed pots. But one of my absolute favourite parts of using this thing is I can keep little bottles of different types of varnish ready to go in bottles. And it's brilliant for things like chipping medium. I did all my ash waste terrain with this thing, hot swapping between brown and orange, chipping medium and ivory. Painted on the metallics, gave it a watered down wash blended with a wet brush, a few weathering pencils, and this was done in 5 hours. And most of that time was spent waiting for the chipping medium to dry. The big question, how much is this thing? Well, if you haven't already paused and done a search, which is what I would have done, it only costs around £40 or $50. Extra bottles with nozzles are £30 or $40. So for the price of 3 or 4 Citadel rattle cans, you can have this. So would I recommend this? Yes, but not as a replacement for an airbrush. It's not that. But if you find yourself wanting something more precise than a rattle can for all weathers to use indoors, but not as fiddly and annoying as an airbrush, get this. I don't imagine that it'll last for years because it's plastic, but I've used it for 2 years now and it's still going strong. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. Anybody got any better ideas for ending a video other than saying thanks for watching, guys? I'll see you in the next one? Because everybody does that. Maybe I just ended like The Sopranos.